Hey guys, can y'all hear me? Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, awesome. Does it sound okay? Because I wonder, here's my test. Does this sound better or same or worse? I'm trying it in different places to make sure you can hear it the best. I guess not, maybe you can't. How about now? Can you hear me now? Yes, did that sound better, Maria, or does it sound worse? Or the same? Better? Okay, good. Yeah, I plugged it into my computer and I felt like it would be better, but I wasn't positive. So, all right. So what we're going to do is go ahead and get out something to write with and a piece of paper if you haven't already. And we're just going to do some practice problems. Okay. We're going to go through and hopefully, and if you have any questions, just type them off to the side. And then hopefully, you will be able to see everything I write. Okay, so I just have a bunch of different problems that we're just going to go through. All right, so let's get started. All right, so let's start simple. Let's just ease into it. So 3b minus 7 minus 6 equals -1. All right, so I expect you to be solving this problem too, just so you can kind of catch up catch any mistakes that you might be making. Because I know sometimes when you're watching, it's like you watch and you're like, oh yeah, I know why she did that. I understand that. But if you're doing it, then you're likely to see if maybe you wouldn't have necessarily done that right away. Okay. All right. So while we're solving this, remember, don't call me after midnight. You want to start with distribution. There's nothing to distribute. So the next thing is to combine like terms. So I am going to combine like terms on the left. And I have this -7 here and this -6. So this becomes 3b minus 13 equals -1. There's no like terms to combine on the right. So now we are going to move. We're going to move the constant to the right so that we end up with b equals some number. So we want the constant on the right and we want our variable on the left. So to do that, I'm going to add 13 to both sides. So you're going to end up with 3b equals 12. And then the last thing you have to do is divide both sides by 3. And when I divide by 3, you should end up with b is equal to 4. All right, so questions? If not, that's fine. None? Okay. All right, so let's do another one. All right, let's do, all right, -8m minus 13 equals 5m minus 3 minus 3m. So I picked this one on purpose because today when we were doing the group activity with equations, I had a lot of people start automatically adding and subtracting to each side. And there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. It's just going to take you a lot longer. Your best bet, and not even just a lot longer, I think people start to confuse themselves. And the more steps you take, the more likely you are to make careless mistakes. So the best thing that you can do is to combine like terms as soon as you can. So again, don't call me after midnight. There's nothing to distribute. There are no like terms to combine on the left, but there are like terms to combine on the right. So I have this positive 5m and I have this negative 3m. Well, positive 5m and negative 3m become 2m, and then you have this minus 3 left. And then on the left, there was nothing to combine, so we just have 8m minus 13. And again, please feel free to ask any questions if y'all have them at any time. You don't have to wait for me to stop, okay? Just, that's the beauty of the chat. You just chat and ask, okay? All right, so we've combined like terms. So again, I want to have this problem so that its m is equal to something. So I want to keep my m on the left. So I'm going to get rid of this 13. So I'm going to add 13 to both sides of the equation. But I want to make sure that I am keeping like terms. I can't add the 13 to this 2m because they're not like terms. Okay, so this cancels out. So I'm left with negative 8m is equal to 2m, and then minus 3 plus 13 is plus 10. So again, I want my variable on the left. So I'm going to subtract, because this is a positive 2m, so I'm going to subtract 2m from both sides. So negative 8m minus 2m is negative 10m, and then the 10 is all that is left on the side, on the right side. So then now the only thing I have left to do is to divide both sides by negative 10, and you get that m is equal to negative 1. Okay, all right, so let's try another one. I don't see any questions. All right. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a second to work on that one. All right, so I know y'all might still be working, but I can go ahead and distribute. You guys are great at distributing. So 35 minus 25x equals negative 8x minus 33. All right, so for don't call me after midnight, I started with distributing. And now for the call, I'm going to combine. There's nothing on the left side to combine, and there is nothing on the right side to combine. So now I am going to, let's see, I want to have my variable on the left, so it's like x is equal to something. So I'm going to subtract, because this is a positive 35. So I'm going to subtract 35 from both sides. So this cancels out. So I'm left with negative 25x is equal to negative 8x. And be very careful about that negative side. It's really easy to forget about that negative right there, okay? So, because all this is what canceled out, leaving me with negative 25x. And then on the right, negative 8x, negative 33 minus 35 is negative 68. And I want to move my variable to the left, so I'm going to add 8x to both sides. So this cancels out here. So negative 25x plus 8x is negative 17x, and then is equal to negative 68. And so now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 17, and you are going to get that x is equal to positive 4. Because remember, if you have a negative over negative, that is positive. Again, I can see there's some new people here. Please, if you have any questions, ask them at any time. You don't have to wait until I stop. That's what the chat box is for. So ask away. Okay, no questions, so I'm going to keep going. Let's see. All right, how about this one? We have negative 8 times 1 plus 4m minus 6 equals 210. So again, I'll give you guys a second to try that. And I'm sorry if you hear my dogs barking. I think they're barking at the rain. All right, so I already distributed. Don't call me after midnight. I distributed. Again, be very careful. Make sure you're distributing the negative 8, not just 8. So you should have negative 8 minus 32m minus 6 equals 210. So then for the call, that's the combined like terms. So I am going to combine negative 8 with negative 6. And so the negative 8 minus 6 is negative 14. I use those, so I'm still left with negative 32m. So minus 32m, and that is equal to 210. And again, I want my answer to be m is equal to something. So I want the variable on the left. So I'm going to add 14 to both sides. So the minus 14 plus 14 cancels out. And again, I'm left with negative 32m here. And then 210 plus 14 is 224. And so I am going to divide both sides by negative 32. And I don't know what I'm writing there, sorry. Those cancel out, leaving me with just the m on the left. And then you have a positive divided by a negative, so you know your answer is negative. And then 224 divided by 32 is 7. So you should have m equals negative 7. All right, so I'm going to move on, and I'm going to do a couple of literal equations. Okay, so remember that's when you're solving for a variable. All right, so let's say we have let's say we have 2a equals 3w plus 3x, and we are solving for a. Okay, start off easy and ease us in. All right, so if we are solving for A, we want to get the A by itself. If it says solve for A, that means we want to rewrite it so it's A is equal to something. So what's happening is that A is being multiplied by 2. So to get the A by itself, we are going to divide by 2. But remember, the whole part over here has to be divided by 2, not just the 3W or the 3X, the whole part. And so then you are left with A equals 3W plus 3X over 2. Now, there's nothing wrong with that answer, but remember, you have to be able to notice different things, like it could be written different ways that mean the same thing. So this could be A equals 3/2 W plus 3/2 X, because this 2, both terms here are divided by 2. So make sure you understand that both of these mean the same thing, okay? All right, so let's do another literal equation. All right, let's do 2x minus 1 equals 4mw. And let's solve for x. I don't know what I'm writing there. Okay. All right, so again, if I am solving for x, I want to get the x by itself. So to do that, I am going to start by adding 1 to both sides. Okay. Now, when you simplify this, this cancels out. So I'm left with 2x on the left side, but on the right, I have 4mw plus 1, because the 4mw was there first, and then you're adding 1 to it. So 4mw plus 1. And then again, we're still solving for x. We want the x by itself, so we're not done until it says x equals. So we're going to divide by 2, but the whole part here gets divided by 2. So you are going to have, sorry, I have to simplify that a little bit. Okay, so you're going to have x equals 4mw plus 1 over 2. But going along with what I said on that last problem, you have to be able to recognize it in different forms. So both parts get divided by 2 here. So this is the same thing as saying 4mw over 2 plus 1 over 2, which is 2mw plus 1/2. So again, just so that you can see it in different ways and know that it has the same meaning. Okay, so that's literal equations. So now let's move on and let's do a couple of inequality problems. Okay, because you are going to have to do some shading tomorrow on your test. You're going to have to know how to solve inequalities. All right, so let's start off with negative 84 is less than or equal to 5 times a minus 8 minus 4. Okay, so we've got 2 sides to our inequality here. And so we're going to solve this just as if it was an equation. We're going to do the whole don't call me after midnight. We're going to start with distributing. We're going to distribute the 5. So this gives us 5a minus 40 minus 4. And then on the left, we have negative 84. Yeah, just saw that, Nellie. I fixed it. All right, so we distributed. So now we're going to combine like terms. So I've got this minus 40 and this minus 4. So this is going to be 5a minus 44, because negative 40 minus 4 is negative 44. And on the left, you have negative 84. So negative 84 is less than or equal to 5a minus 44. Okay. Now, you have a couple of options here. I'm actually going to leave this so that we're going to have our number on one side and our a on the other with our inequality. I'm going to go in that route. you can do it a different way, but I'm going to show you how that'll work in the end. So I'm going to add 44 to both sides. So this cancels out. So on the left, negative 84 plus 44 is negative 40, and then is less than or equal to, and then you have 5a. So divide both sides by 5. Now, I am not dividing by a negative number. I am dividing by a positive number. I know that this is a negative 40 here, but because you're not dividing by a negative number, you do not change the direction of the sign when you divide. So negative 40 divided by 5 is negative 8, and then I have less than or equal to a. But when I'm graphing, because I'm going to graph this in a second, you want your variable on the left. So when I'm swapping, when I swap these, that's going to change. So I have 8 and negative a and negative 8. But I'm also going to have to change the direction of my sign. Because if you notice, see how the arrow is pointing to the negative 8? So the arrow needs to be pointing to the negative 8 when you swap it. So when you graph this, and you have negative 8 here, you're saying that a is greater than or equal to, so you're going to fill in that circle because of the greater than or equal to, and because the arrow is pointing that way, you're going to shade to the right. So a is greater than or equal to negative 8. So again, no questions? Okay. I will keep going. All right, so next one. Somebody else's mic is on. Okay. So let's do another one. All right, let's do 7 plus 2k is greater than 3 plus k plus 3k. So I'll give you guys a second to do that one. 7 plus 2k is greater than 3 plus k plus 3k. Yep. All right, so there's nothing to distribute. So I am going to combine like terms. There's no like terms on the left, so that just gives me 7 plus 2k is greater than. But on the right, I do have like terms to combine. I have this 1k and 3k, which combine to be 4k. And again, I want my variable on the left. So I'm going to subtract 7 because this is a positive 7. So I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. So the plus 7 minus 7 cancels out, leaving me with 2k. And then on the right, positive 3 minus 7 is negative 4, and then plus 4k. So now I'm going to subtract 4k from both sides. So this cancels out. So that gives me negative 2k on the left is greater than negative 4 on the right. And now I am going to divide by a negative. So because this is a negative here that I am dividing by, this sign is going to change directions. So this is going to become k, and that's going to be less than, so I'm switching the direction of my sign. Negative 4 over negative 2 is positive 2. So I have k is less than 2. And when I graph it, here is 2. It is less than, so it's an open circle. Because it is less than, not or equal to, it's an open circle, and I'm shading to the left. So because the arrow is pointing this way, I'm shading to the left that way. I just can't believe y'all have no questions. None. Let's try. All right, let's do a compound inequality. Okay. All right, so let's say let's say 3 is less than or equal to 2x minus 11, which is less than or equal to, let's go big. Let's go 21. Yeah. Okay. So this is a compound inequality. You have 2 inequalities in here together. You have this inequality and you have this inequality. So when you solve it, whatever you solve, it has to satisfy both conditions. Okay. So we're going to solve this, but instead of having the left and right, we have the left, the middle, and the right. So whatever we do to the middle, we have to do to all 3 sides. So we want to solve for x. We want to get the x by itself. We want to isolate that variable. So to do that, I'm going to add 11, but I'm going to add 11 to all 3 parts. Okay, so the minus 11 plus 11 cancels out, and that leaves us with 2x in the middle. And then I have 3 plus 11, which is 14. I was right in there. And then 21 plus 11, which is 32. Again, we're still trying to get the x by itself. So we're going to divide by 2, but we're going to divide by 2 on all 3 parts. So the 2's cancel out. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. Then you just have an x in the middle. And then 32 divided by 2 is 16. So when you graph this, we know that x is greater than or equal to 7. So it's going to be in this way, but it also has to be less than or equal to 16. And I'm filling in my circles because of the or equal to. So x has to satisfy both conditions. It has to be greater than or equal to 7, and it has to be less than or equal to 16. So this is one of those ands, a conjunction inequality, compound inequality. All right, now let me do an or so we can practice doing the ors. So let's say we have negative 7 minus 6x is greater than or equal to negative 7, or x minus 4 is greater than or equal to 3. So we have 2 different inequalities here. Okay, so they're not going to have an overlap in answers. So the one on the left, I'm going to add 7 to both sides. Actually, I should stop, I'm sorry, and let you guys look at it for a second. I go too fast sometimes, sorry. All right, so on the one on the left, if I add 7 to both sides, that gives me negative 6x is greater than or equal to 0. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 6. 0 over negative 6 is equal to 0. Remember, that's a number. There's nothing wrong. If you have 0 on top, that's equal to 0. And so here, though, because I am dividing by a negative number, we're changing the direction of the sign. So you're going to have x is less than or equal to 0. So again, because we divided by this negative number, we had to change the direction of the sign to be less than or equal to. All right, so now for the right one, because remember this is OR, so we have 2 different inequalities going on here. So for this one, I'm going to add 4 to both sides. So I have x is greater than or equal to 7. And there's nothing else that I can do there. So when I graph this, we have 2 inequalities here, 0 and here's 7. So we have x is less than or equal to 7. It's going to be filled in because it's or equal to, and less than is going to look like this. And then this one, x is greater than or equal to 7. You can't even see the 7. X is greater than or equal to 7. I'm going to have a closed circle because of the or equal to, and greater than is going this way. So this is an or because there's not a number that's going to satisfy both conditions. It's got to be one or the other, because you're not going to have a number in both places. It can only be greater than or equal to 7 or less than or equal to 0. Whereas here, you do have, like the number 9, for example, that satisfies both conditions. Here, if I've got the number 10, that only satisfies one condition. It's not going to satisfy both. So that's the difference between the and the or. All right, do y'all have any requests on something specific you want to go do more, like regular equations, inequalities, compound inequalities? What are your requests? Nothing? Compound, okay, we can do more compound. I'm done with that. All right, so let's find another one. Can we try a word problem? Oh, fractions would be good too. Okay, so let's do a compound one real quick, and then we'll do a fraction one, and then we can do a word problem. Problem is with word problems, I don't have one ready, but I can make one up. I'll make one up. I'll do the best I can. Okay. All right, so let's do another compound problem. Okay. All right, so here we go. We have 4 is less than 3x plus 1, which is less than 10. All right, so again, we have the 3 parts, and this is going to be an and, so it's got to satisfy both conditions when we graph it, okay? So I'm going to subtract 1. I'm going to subtract 1 from all 3 parts. So this cancels out, leaving us with 3 is less than 3x, which is less than 9. And so now I want the x by itself, so I'm going to divide by 3, but I'm going to divide by 3 on all parts. So this cancels out, leaving us with 1 is less than x, which is less than 3. So when you graph this one, you're saying that x is between 1 and 3. So it's going to be open circle, and then x is between 1 and 3. So x is greater than 1, but it's also less than 3. All right, so that's a compound one. All right, let's do a fraction 1. All right, let's say we have negative 15 over 16 equals 3 over 2x minus 11 over 4x. Okay. Did I do that right? Yeah. Okay. So first of all, to do this one, we need to simplify this side. We need to combine like terms because they have a variable attached to them. So I'm actually going to write it this way just because I don't like the vertical. So okay, so let's say 3 over 2x minus, actually I'm going to do this. Let's just say 3 over 2 minus 11 over 4, because really that's what we're looking at, right? So in order to subtract fractions or add fractions, they have to have a common denominator. So a common denominator here would be 4. So the bottom fraction stays the same. That's going to be negative 11 over 4. The top fraction, though, because we multiplied by 2 right here, we multiply 3 by 2, which gives us 6. So we're changing 3 over 2 to 6 over 4. Now we can subtract them. 6 over 4 minus 11 over 4 is negative 5 over 4. So all of this right here is negative 5 over 4x. And the left side stays the same at negative 15 over 16. All right, and so now we want to solve for x, and x is being multiplied by negative 5 over 4. So we could divide both sides by negative 5 over 4. But whenever you divide by a fraction, like if you have 2/3 divided by 1/4, you end up multiplying by the reciprocal. You keep change flip, right? So you end up going 2/3 times 4 over 1. Well, what we can do here is just save some steps and just go ahead and multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply both sides by negative 4 over 5. Negative 4 over 5. So then that way, these cancel out, and they are equal to 1 whole, leaving me with just x on the right. On the left, I can just multiply straight across. Now, technically, you could cross simplify. I'm just going to go ahead and multiply straight across. So negative 4 times negative 15 is positive 60. And positive 5 times 60 is 80. And so when I'm simplifying 60 over 80, I notice that they are both divisible by 20, which gives me 3/4. So 3/4 is equal to x. So just as a heads up, when you're using your calculator, guys, I don't expect you to put these fractions in your calculator. Your calculator is going to be used for like this stuff right here, like where you're doing the multiplying or finding common denominators. Most calculators aren't going to just let you straight up put the fractions in there and do the whole operation, as a heads up. All right, last one real quick on a word problem. Okay. All right, let's say there's 2 phone plans. So let's say, and I'm totally making this up, by the way. So let's say Verizon has a plan where you can pay $20 a month, but then 5 cents per text message. Sprint has a plan where you pay $25 per month, but you only pay 1 cent per text message. So the question is, when would these 2 plans be equal? Here, Sterling, I'm going to come back to that. Let me do this word problem and I'll come back to it, okay? Actually, Sterling, that simplifies to 3/4. And then the negative, probably you messed up with the negative times a negative being positive. Okay. So with the word problem, so Verizon, $20 a month, then 5 cents per text. Sprint is $25 a month, sorry, and then 1 cent per text. So if we want to know when they're going to be the same, that means when they're going to be equal. So I'm going to subtract 20 from both sides. So I have 0.05x equals 5 plus 0.01x. Then I'm going to Then I'm going to subtract 0.01x from both sides. So I have 0.04x equals 5. And then I will divide both sides by 0.04. And that gets, I think it's 125. Sorry. Before I tell you the wrong thing. Yep, 125. So it'd be after 125 texts. So if you're going to send 125 text messages, they would both be the same. They would both be equal to each other. All right, so that is all I have for y'all tonight. If you have any questions from this, or if you are looking at your study guide, remember the answers are on my webpage, so you can get to the answers that way. If you have any questions about that, please email me or send me a message and remind. You also, remember there's upgrade tomorrow morning at 7:10, so you can come see me then, or just anytime, on your way to your first period class if you want to come see me, okay? Because right when you guys come in, I'm gonna let you guys get started because I want to make sure y'all have enough time. So I'm not gonna set aside any time to answer questions. So, all right, that's all I got. Good night, and I will talk to you later. Bye.